I'm going to talk about Motley Crue today, and I'm probably going to talk about Motley Crue. I sense that this is going to be a long one because this is not just one album. Despite the title, it says I want to talk about this album. It does also say I'm going to talk about all the Motley Crue albums. This goes back to during the first, this was, 3 years ago at the start of the pandemic. I did this stupid series called, it wasn't called anything. I just went through bands' discographies. I did Slayer, Metallica, Kiss, Motorhead, Cherry Poppin' Daddies, Rat, Faith No More, can't remember. And then that ended. I ran out of discographies to do. So I started doing individual albums, and I called it I Love This Album. And I didn't run out of albums that I loved. Those were meant to be albums that were like influential to me or big albums for me. And then I just started saying, I want to talk about this album. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm going to talk about Motley Crue's for me, very, very confusing discography. They have one album that's an all-time classic for me, another album that I can't stand, maybe two albums that I can't stand. See, I'm not sure already. A couple of others that I'm really not sure about. Another great one, one that everybody loves, but I don't. Another one that I wouldn't say I love it, but I like it a lot. I think most people hate it. You'll see what all these things are going to be if you're interested. But I'm going to do that later. So skip ahead. You can scroll along if you want to just hear me talk about the albums, the Motley Crue albums, the 9 studio albums that they have. But what prompted me to talk about this today, what put Motley Crue on my mind was everybody knows recent events. Mick Mars, I guess, is suing. Not I guess, he is suing Motley Crue. He was this goes back to when October, I think, that Mick Mars quit Motley Crue. And I should say, before I get too deep into this, at one point there was no band, I don't think, that was more important to me than Motley Crue. So this is coming from the point of view from at least a former Crue head, and to some extent still am. But man, they've really, really, maybe more than any band, fallen off more than any band that I've ever liked. The distance, the disparity between the height of when I liked them and where I see them now, in my eyes, is a massive gap, which I'm going to talk about. So Mick Mars quit Motley Crue in September, October, something like that. No statement, just he was quitting Motley Crue because of his condition. He's got a problem with his spine. I can't remember how to pronounce the name of it, but everybody knows this. He's got some kind of disease or a condition that his spine, I think, is compressing, and he's hunching over, and he's in constant pain, and he can't play well. And let me get my cat down, or she can co-host for as long as she'll stay. So the word was that he quit, but there was no statement from Mick. And maybe a month ago, Carmine Appice. Now, what the hell is this guy's name? Is it Appice? Because I think his brother Vinny goes by Appice and Carmine goes by Appice. Those guys need to get their shit together. Get on the same page. APPICE brothers, whatever you want to call yourselves. And about a month ago, he said that Mick quit because he wasn't happy because Motley Crue was using backing tracks, which they've been long accused of, going back to 1997, which I think I'll also talk about that. And Mick didn't like that, and that was it. So that was kind of in the air. And then Mick confirmed that last week, a few days ago. He filed a lawsuit. This went public. Now, I don't remember all the details, but Mick said that Motley Crue on the recent tour they did, this big stadium tour, which was also bullshit, that Nikki Sixx didn't play one note, not just that it was ghosting. He said not one note that Nikki Sixx played was live, that it was all recorded. Some of Tommy Lee's drum parts were recorded. Now, the confusing point is he said Vince Neil's vocals were pre-recorded, which I don't understand, because Vince Neil's an awful singer, which I'm going to get to that too. I'm going to get to all these things. I'm not sure how Vince's vocals can be pre-recorded, canned, because he only sings half of them anyway. Everybody knows this. So I'm not sure, but Mick had some very scathing things to say about Motley Crue. And of course, Nikki Sixx responded as Nikki Sixx does, petulantly, childishly. Believe me, I'm going to get into Nikki Sixx. I talked about this a little bit with my friend Dallas a couple of days ago. He's probably watching this because I told him that I was going to be doing this today. And I'll get to Nikki Sixx later. What a dick that guy is. And so that's where Motley Crue stands today, these lawsuits. And then Motley Crue countered with saying that, Motley, I can't remember if this was Nikki that was saying this, or even some crew members, some of Motley Crue's crew members who were saying Mick couldn't remember his guitar parts. He was playing the wrong songs. He was out of tune. All these things, which there's been some debate or some controversy about whether Mick played on the Saints of Los Angeles from 2006 or 2007, the last Motley Crue album, and I would guess they'll never do another album, but who knows? There were rumors back then that it wasn't Mick that played on that album. Nothing. I think the rumors were that it was John 5, and I think those were. I don't know if they were confirmed that he fully played on it, but I think it's a pretty sure thing that if John 5 didn't play on the whole thing, Mick definitely didn't play on the whole thing. So there's all this crap. And so what I want to talk about today is how much I hate Motley Crue and how despicable they are. They're unlikable to some extent musically, but just as people, they're as individuals and I guess collectively as a group, I just can't stand Motley Crue, which is really bad because I used to hold them in the highest regard. Where to begin with this? And some might say, well, who cares? Because you don't listen to music for how good the people are. And some would make the argument that if you only listen to bands who are good people, you would never listen to anybody. Maybe only Foo Fighters or I don't know who's else considered nice guys. Bono, I don't know, U2. Which is kind of true, but like to me, maybe the I don't know if it's the older I get in terms of age, or just the more, I see things differently. And it's the same with sports. I'm a big sports fan, and it's hard to cheer for athletes these days because none of them are. They're all dicks, and they're all just attention whores and just not very nice people. It makes me not interested in watching the sports as much, and maybe that's wrong, but that's kind of how I feel. So going through these four guys individually, we'll start with I guess Mick is not. It's not that he's likable, but he's not as unlikable as the other three. Although these recent things, him saying, and I'm sure true, and maybe he should be saying this or should feel this. I don't know if he should be saying it publicly. He's saying that he carried Motley Crue for years, which I really doubt is true, because I've heard for years that he can't play or doesn't want to play or whatever. But now that he's being so public about this and just has horrible words to say about his bandmates of 42 years, which I understand, but it just makes him look bad that he's making this so public and so soon that he's suing them. And what a shame it is that Motley Crue has become this massive corporate entity that they have meetings with lawyers and management. And I know they have to. Metallica is like that. And Pearl Jam and Foo Fighters and U2 and Rolling Stones and every band, when you get to that level, you can't, it's not DIY. You have to have these, these people, lawyers and management and people representing you. That's the way it goes. So Mick is not too bad. A lot of people seem to love Mick. I don't think he's a likable guy. He's not unlikable. He's just kind of neutral for me. Tommy Lee is just annoying. I just don't like that guy. Hearing him speak and reading, and I don't have Twitter. I've never used Twitter, but when he tweets, and when he does something that makes the news, just the guy, what a man child. He's I guess now 60, 61. And there's nothing wrong with being youthful. I think I'm youthful, but Tommy Lee is like a moronic teenager. Just everything out of his mouth is moronic. Big attention whore. I don't know what else to say about Tommy Lee. That he's just annoying. This is kind of. I used to think Tommy Lee was the most likable. I thought, he has a good energy. He's he seems kind of like a charming, sweet guy. But over the last, I don't know how many years, he's begun to really just annoy me. Maybe this is me just seeing him differently. I don't know if he's actually. I don't think he's changed into this. I think it's just the way that I've seen him has changed, and especially recently when they started this stadium tour last year, which was delayed from 2020. And so Motley Crue has, and I should say about this bullshit stadium tour, Motley Crue, everybody knows this, they signed a contract, and it's stupid. I at the time I thought it was a gimmick, but I did think it was on not that it was a legal contract that they were going to be held to it, that they said, we are not going to get back together. This is the end of Motley Crue. They made a big deal out of it because I guess, all these other bands, and Motley Crue seems to think they're above other bands. And, Scorpions, Kiss, The Who, all these bands that supposedly do final tours, farewell tours, and Motley Crue said, we're Motley Crue. We don't do it like that. We're going to make sure we do it. We're going to sign this contract, and they made a big deal about it. And I thought it was true, not because of the stupid contract, but just because they were going so far out of their way to say it. I thought, no, there's no way they would contradict themselves on that. But I think more than that, even they seem like they didn't want to tour anymore. It seems that they don't like each other. I think Vince and Tommy have hated each other for years. Nikki Sixx just seems miserable all the time about everything. They don't play well at all. They're not a good live band. Some people say they never were. That's not true. I think they were a great live band at some point. And it seemed like the end for Motley Crue. And then having this contract was just the whatever you want to call it, the chef's kiss. I hate that expression. Or the ribbon on top, the icing on the cake. All right, so they obviously were offered a lot of cash. Not that I would have turned it down. But for a bunch of guys, especially Nikki Sixx, that fucking fake asshole, guys who pride themselves on integrity, that they think they're above everybody else. They had enough money waved in their face that they came back after only 4 or 5 years absent. It's not like they were gone for, Faith No More was gone for 12 years. Guns N' Roses was gone for 20 years, or at least the Axl / Duff, Guns N' Roses. So when they started that tour, and Tommy Lee from the very first show had his ribs taped up, couldn't play. Now to me, and this is getting kind of a problem, that the bands are just replacing everybody's. I guess they're getting older, and with COVID before, people are getting sick. People are getting, not related to COVID, but getting injured, and guys from other bands or their road crew or whatever are filling in for them. So I thought this was a bad start, that Tommy Lee had busted ribs or something wrong with his ribs. He didn't address that. There was speculation that, and maybe it was more than speculation, that he got in a fight with Vince Neil, and Vince Neil tackled him onto the drum riser, and he hurt his ribs that way. And then I think sometime later, Tommy Lee's girlfriend, and it's horrible if you're having your girlfriend or wife speak for you when you're at this level, said that he was carrying some bags or something, and he was walking up the driveway and he slipped, which sounds like, or was it I don't know, it was the drummer for Scorpions that injured his ribs falling out of bed. Yeah, Tommy Lee injured his ribs, supposedly slipped carrying bags, something like that. Sounds like bullshit, but just and he could only play a few songs from that tour, and just watching highlights or the videos that people took from that tour, and he's still, just the way he talks just bugs the shit out of me. And I know there are a lot of people that feel the same way. And he would go up with his headless or wireless mic, his headphone mic set, and say, yo, yeah, everything is yo, I guess, with this guy. And so other than saying annoying, I just, it's not even that I don't like Tommy Lee, he just bugs the shit out of me. Vince Neil, regardless of the fact that Vince Neil killed a guy in 1984 because he was driving drunk, that was a long time ago, and didn't really serve any. I think he went to jail for a month or something. Just fat, lazy, out of shape, can't sing, doesn't make any effort. Maybe you're fat, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're Vince Neil and you're in a band and you're, a public figure and image is a big part of your gig, and if you're gonna go out and charge a lot of money for people to watch you perform, and you don't make any effort to get in shape or to was it recently? And he did some solo shows before the stadium tour or between stadium tour shows, and the first one he did, he had to end it early because he was so tired, he was so out of breath, so out of shape. Just a fat, lazy, out of shape, no effort asshole Vince Neil is. Take some pride in what you do. You're charging a lot of money, or you're receiving a lot of money. Make an effort. Lose some weight. I don't care if you're fat or not, but if Vince Neil were retired and sitting in his house and he's fat, he could be twice as fat as he is. I wouldn't care. But I think when you have a job like this, and I hope I'm not shaming anybody who's Vince Neil size or bigger. Again, I have no problem with that. I feel like I have to justify this, and I hope people understand what I'm saying because I don't think I'm articulating it very well. Vince Neil, I think, it's just like an athlete. You have a duty to, you're in the performing industry, do it. Amongst other things with Vince Neil. Now, let me get to Nikki Sixx, that fucking fake asshole. For me, I don't think there's anybody and usually I like to be positive. This is really the first kind of negative video that I've done. I've done a lot of videos about, something like this. And Nikki Sixx, I just can't think of anything to say about this guy other than he wrote one of my favorite albums ever. But to me, he's the Donald Trump of rock. And what I mean by that is, for one, he's just full of shit. Beyond liar, he's just full of shit. And he's just completely unaware of any hypocrisy or any image that he crafts for himself. He's just unaware of how he's seen. There was something else I was going to say about Nikki Sixx, and I actually have a few things written down here that I'm going to share. There was something else I was going to say about that made me think that he's like Donald Trump. Oh, that he's thin-skinned. Yes, of course. You can't say anything about Nikki Sixx. I'll probably be the only person, because I'm low enough that I won't be on his radar. But nothing can say anything about Nikki Sixx or Motley Crue that he would take a personal affront to and immediately fire up his Twitter machine. And he's got to have an opinion on Eddie Vedder, who he had never had an opinion about before. But when Eddie Vedder said something bad about Motley Crue, of course, Nikki Sixx has got I guess he's got all these things deep down inside, and then he lashes out when these things come to the surface. I had to actually make a list, and this is not comprehensive, but going back to Nikki Sixx, all the bullshit, stupid little feuds that he's had with people. Going back to 1997, speaking about backing tracks, and that's another thing, how he presents himself as like a bastion of integrity, and that he's kind of touts himself as a real musician, a real songwriter. And if Mick Mars, if what Mick Mars says is true, that Nikki Sixx is not playing a note live, fuck this guy even more. But going back to 1997, Lars Ulrich accused, and by the way, all these people I'm going to talk about, this is not to defend them. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like. This is all about Nikki Sixx. And I think everybody should be able to, people are terrible. People get too attached to politicians or athletes or entertainers or whatever. And I like this band, so I have to like everything they do and everything they say. I agree with it. I see people defending Ted Nugent. The guy says the dumbest shit anybody ever says, and people still, say he's right because they like his music. Or Gene Simmons. I think some of you at least would know, I'm a massive Kiss fan since 1976. I got a big Kiss tattoo here. I've got Kiss records here, a couple of them there. I only have 7 records. They're all Kiss. I've spent a lot of money on Kiss. Gene Simmons, I could do this same video talking about the 4 original members of Kiss. They're equally as unlikable as the 4 members individually of Motley Crue. I love their music. It doesn't mean I think that what they say is correct or that I agree with it. So Lars in 1987, this was before, it wasn't before the internet, it was way before social media and Twitter. And Motley Crue was playing on the American Music Awards, and Lars, I don't know where this would have been out because, as I said, there's no social media. Lars said that Motley Crue is playing to backing tracks, which it turned out, what's that, 26 years later, is true. And then Nicky said, and I remember this, I guess at that point, instead of going on Twitter, he would, I don't know how they would do things back then, put out press releases or something. He said, "Dear sweet, fat, balding Lars." So it's not just enough for Nicky to say, and this is where the Donald Trump comes in. Remember, Donald Trump is calling Stormy Daniels horseface. I don't want to get too off topic here, but if you've ever seen Stormy Daniels, and if you've ever seen Donald Trump, he is making fun of her looks. Yeah. So again, who is Nikki Sixx to talk shit about anybody? This oversensitive baby. So he called him "Dear sweet fat balding Lars." Says this is none of your business. Don't talk about it. Whatever. Lars was right. Whether you like or not, they were playing along to backing tracks. Now I guess the most recent one was Eddie Vedder. This was sometime probably around this time last year. Eddie Vedder said fairly innocuously in an interview with, I think it was the New York Times, kind of as an aside, he said he hated Motley Crue going back to the 80s. He hated Motley Crue. He said he didn't like, and I guess if you know how Eddie Vedder is, you can believe this. I guess I'll believe that he was like this before he was famous too. He thought they were sexist, misogynist. He didn't like the image not literally their look, but he didn't like how they portrayed women or how they portrayed themselves. He said it made women look bad. He said it made guys look bad. Kind of, he wasn't really attacking Motley Crue. He was just saying, I guess the interviewer asked him about music, and he said that. And then, of course, the next day, or maybe it was that same day, Nikki Sixx, who can't let anything go, another thing that he has in common with Donald Trump, can't let it go. He fired up Twitter, and he said, now what was great about this, and you see everybody says this, and they're so full of shit. I laughed, and I'm not quoting him exactly, but Nikki Sixx tweeted, "It makes me laugh, or I laugh to see that the singer of Pearl Jam is criticizing Motley Crue." No, Nikki, you didn't laugh. You got angry. I don't think you laugh at anything. Anytime anybody says the smallest thing about you, laughing is the last thing you do. You get angry. And a lot of people say this too. Is that called deflection or projecting or something like that? Because nobody wants to admit, I was mad. This made me really angry. So they say, I laughed. No, you didn't laugh. It's like the guys that say, their girlfriend breaks up with them and they say to their friends, "Oh, if she ever wanted to get back with me, no way I would take her back." Yeah, you would. Don't lie. Or I would never, I wouldn't fuck this girl. She's too ugly. Yeah, you would. Don't lie. So it's the same thing. This more fake crap that Nikki Sixx does, saying that he laughed when he read Eddie Vedder's comments. No, he didn't laugh. And then he went on to say how Eddie Vedder sounds like he sings with marbles in his mouth. Now, I've heard that since the internet anyway, maybe even before that. Eddie Vedder, at least back in the first album or a couple of albums, he doesn't, in some cases, doesn't enunciate well. I know that. And so what? And again, this is not a defense of Eddie Vedder. This is all about Nikki Sixx. So Nikki Sixx made the great 30 years after the fact, pointed out so eloquently that Eddie Vedder doesn't sing clearly. Well, okay, you're about the 8 millionth person to say that, Nikki Sixx. But also amazing that Nikki Sixx, who has maybe one of the worst singers, live singers, especially in rock, to I mean, for a fan to say Eddie Vedder sings like that, that's okay. But Nikki Sixx is in a band with the guy who's probably considered the worst singer in the world of rock, and Nikki Sixx is going to talk about how bad Eddie Vedder is, and also saying, and he does this another thing that everybody does to kind of deflect things. He says it's a compliment. Well, he said considering Pearl Jam is one of the most boring bands in history, it should be a compliment that Eddie Vedder is saying this, which doesn't make sense. But that's the same as the people that would say something like, if you talk about how if you're anti-vaccine or if you're anti this or this, and then people talk bad about you, oh, well, I know that I'm on the right track if they say that I'm wrong. I probably didn't explain that very well, but I think just more crap from Nikki Sixx, who was very upset by Eddie Vedder. Steel Panther. Now, I couldn't. Not only do I not care about Steel Panther, I actually don't like them. I think that's garbage music. I just don't like it, so I'm not sticking up for them. But they put Vince Neil down. I think it was the singer or the drummer. Somebody from Steel Panther said that Vince Neil, this was a couple years ago, said that Vince Neil now is a far cry from the Vince Neil of his heyday, which is totally true. I think everybody knows that. But Nikki Sixx, what did he say about this? He was upset. He said Steel Panther is going to put down Vince Neil. He called them assholes. And I remember when there was an interview when John Corabi joined Motley Crue in 1994, or maybe it was before that, when Vince had left in 93 or 94, and I think the excuse at the time was he was jet skiing. Vince was jet skiing and he hit a coral reef. More bullshit probably. He was probably drunk or something. That he hit a coral reef and he couldn't tour or something. And either Nikki or Tommy, I think it was Nikki, said, was the coral reef okay? Because implying that Vince was so fat and heavy that it would be the coral reef that suffered the damage, not the Vince Neil. And they talked shit about Vince Neil a lot. But then when the guy from Steel Panther says it, rightfully so, Nikki Sixx was very upset and called him an asshole. Continue with Corabi. Now, every band does this. Whenever they get a new guy in the band, they all say the same thing. This is the band we always wanted to be. The guy who's gone now, we actually didn't want him. Now the guy who replaced him, now we're a real band. And they said stuff like that with John Corabi. Praise John Corabi. I think Tommy Lee especially. Tommy seemed genuine about he liked John Corabi. And then some years ago, maybe 2 years ago, Nikki Sixx said John Corabi can't write a song, or I think he said he doesn't know how to write lyrics. Said he just wasn't a good fit for the band, and this was, of course, his almost 2018, whatever. How many years is that? That was he was in '94. What's that? I don't know when this interview was from. Let's say 2020. So 26 years later, Nikki decides that he wants to badmouth John Corabi, and again, not a defense of John Corabi, because I don't care, and I'll talk about that album shortly if I can wrap this up. I'll talk about the John Corabi album. But Nikki Sixx, for whatever reason, doesn't have anything good to say about anybody. Only talks shit about people. Sebastian Bach. This one I think kind of flew under the radar. Sebastian, again, this was maybe a couple years ago, said that he was asked to try out for Motley Crue when Vince had got fired in 92 or 93, that he was asked to try out for Motley Crue. Nikki said that was bullshit. Who knows? Obviously, one of them is lying. I don't know who. Now, Nikki Sixx seems like more of a liar. Sebastian Bach is kind of a crazy guy, but I'm not sure if he's definitely not a liar on the level of Nikki Sixx. But Nikki Sixx said that's not true. And instead of just that being that, Sebastian Bach said, well, he said, it's true, I was. There were managers and meetings and everything like that. And then, of course, that took Nikki to the next level. And Nikki Sixx said, Sebastian just needs attention. Because maybe he had a book at the time or something. Funny, again, that Nikki Sixx is talking about other people making outlandish remarks or comments because they need attention. Nikki fucking Sixx is talking shit about other people needing attention. Ha! Now the last one, at least that I'm going to talk about for Nikki Sixx, is Poison. Now I remember in 89, 90, somewhere around there, pictures of Nikki Sixx and Bret Michaels, especially in Rip magazine. They were posing with their Harleys or something, and they were friends and everything. And then, for whatever reason, years and years later, Nikki Sixx said Poison was fake bullshit, that they don't want anything to do with Poison. They would never tour with Poison. I think at that time, somebody was trying to put together a tour with Motley Crue and Poison, and maybe Kiss was involved too. And Motley, according to Nikki Sixx, said, "We refuse. I don't want anything to do with that fake bullshit of Poison." And like somehow Nikki Sixx or Motley Crue, Nikki Sixx think he has a higher, he's on a higher level than Poison or something. Give me a break. Called them. He said they were followers. He said some people are leaders, some people are followers. I'm into leaders. Or no, I think he said I'm not into followers. Come on, man, give me a fucking break, this guy. And then later at some point, when it seemed that it was over, I think Bret Michaels said that Nikki apologized, and Nikki, that wasn't good enough. Nikki said, "No, I didn't apologize. What I said was, we were okay with you as people, but we always thought Poison sucked as a band." And again, this is Motley Crue, and I don't care about who has talent or who doesn't have talent, but Motley Crue is not regarded as, in the annals of rock history, Motley Crue is not going to be seen as a band of virtuosos like Rush or I don't know who else is like that, Tool. I don't know. It's Motley Crue and Poison, Nikki. Come on. So that's about Nikki Sixx. Do I have more to say about that? And then it's kind of funny because now, last summer, obviously Poison and Motley Crue toured together. So I guess something changed Nikki's mind. Probably not even money. I shouldn't even say it was money. He probably just forgot that at some point he hated Poison. So that's it. That's what I wanted to talk about. That was what prompted this. Now I'm going to get to their albums, and I'm going to go. I'm not going to do these track by track. They have 9 albums. There's no way I'm not going to do that. But I will talk about each album. And I'm going to normally I would start with the first one because that's usually the way it goes. I'm going to start with Shout the Devil, and I'm not going to talk about it too long because I did an episode talking about, I focused on this for 30 or however many minutes talking about Shout the Devil. So just to, to recap that, all I need to say is Shout the Devil. I'm going to say more, but the most important thing is Shout the Devil is, and still is, one of my all-time favorite albums. Top 10 for sure, maybe higher. There was probably some point where it was my favorite album ever. I maybe around 83 or 84, 85, I don't know. There was a point where I don't know if there was another album to exist that I like better than Shout the Devil. Perfect album, perfect, and it's an album that I think has, for me, a good example of, it's a great example of having good filler. I've talked about this before. Filler is not a song that you don't like. Filler is, I think, these little, instrumentals or cover songs or intros to songs or codas to song, literally to fill the album, to make it longer. People say that Enter Sandman is filler, or Back in the Village by Iron Maiden on Power Slave is filler, just because they don't like it. No, those are real songs. Maybe you don't like it, but it's not filler. So that was a perfect album, and one of the filler. So it had Helter Skelter, a cover, filler, but it's okay. God Bless the Children of the Beast, filler, just a little, minute and a half, minute 40, 2-minute instrumental, but amazing. And one of the great instrumental, it wasn't really an intro. How do you say that? That was just like a median piece between songs. In the beginning, maybe the best example of filler ever. In the beginning, good always overpowered the evils of all man's sins. But in time, the nations grew weak and our cities fell to slums while evil stood strong. In the dust of hell lurk the blackest of hates, for he whom you fear awaits you. Now, many, many lifetimes later, lay destroyed. Oh, that was terrible. Lay destroyed, beaten down. Only corpses of rebels, ashes of dreams, and blood-stained streets. It had been written that those who have the youth have the future. So come now, children of the beast, be strong and shout at the devil. Nothing gets better than that. And then it goes into Shout the Devil, of course. That, when I was a kid, fucking just, I couldn't believe that it was possible to like something as much as I liked the In the Beginning and then the intro into Shout the Devil. In the beginning, good always overpowered the evils of all man's sins. But in time, the nations grew weak and our cities felt the slums while we stood strong. In the dust of hell lurked the blacks of hate. For he whom you fear awaits you. Now, many, many lifetimes later, lay destroyed, beaten down. Only corpses of rebels, ashes of dreams, and blood-stained streets. It had been written that those who have the youth have the future. So come now, children of the beast, destroying the shout the devil. And I fucked that up again. I don't think I could ever get this right. But my God, that is just the best. Best guitar sound that Motley Crue ever had. And another kind of uneven thing about Motley Crue is they never really had an identity. I don't think they ever had like a true sound where you would hear something and say that sounds like a Motley Crue, maybe kind of a style. But all their albums kind of sounded different. They never had another album that sounded like Shout at the Devil. They never had another album that sounded like Too Fast for Love, or I guess Theater of Pain and Girls, Girls, Girls kind of had a similar sound. And I understand some bands want to change from album to album, but to me, they were kind of all over the place. They could never find their sound, I think. So going backwards, so I'll go to Too Fast for Love, or some might say Too Fat for Love. And now I got this one. The reason I was starting with Shout the Devil is because that was the first one I got. I went back later and got Too Fast for Love, probably in it must have been 84. And at that point, Looks to Kill was the very first Motley Crue song I ever heard, and I bought Shout the Devil immediately, loved it immediately. Still love it now. And so I guess I also, sometime after that, saw the video for Livewire, which after Shout the Devil became, kind of big. They started to play the video on Much Music for Livewire. Loved it, so I bought Too Fast for Love. Now, I remember, I know there was a point where I said, Too Fast for Love is better than Shout the Devil. And I was wrong. I think that's just because when you like something, and then you go back and find something that came before it, your instinct to say, oh my God, this is even better. It was the same for me with Kiss, with Alive and Alive 2. I had Alive for years, loved it, and then I heard Alive 2. I thought, this is even better. I guess just because it was new. But no, I don't like... Now, Too Fast for Love is also... I think if you ask like real Motley Crue fans, that is people that have all their albums, and people who really like Motley Crue, like me, their favorite Motley Crue album, I think it would be pretty even. I think an equal number of people would say Shout the Devil and Too Fast for Love. I'm in Shout the Devil camp. But Too Fast for Love is awesome. It's very raw sounding. Much more, I think Shout the Devil is a heavy metal album. No doubt about it. The image, the look, the sound, the lyrics. It was dark, violent, aggressive. Too Fast for Love was hard rock, maybe even glam rock album, something like that. But that opening riff, and I saw Sacrifice. If anybody knows the great thrash band from Toronto called Sacrifice, they invited me to their rehearsal in 2019 at Christmas, and I went to go see them. And they played that a little bit. Rob Urbanati played. They were between songs, and Rob Dennett played Livewire just up until the vocals would have started. And I loved it. And what else? And again, I'm not going to go through track by track. Come On and Dance, Public Enemy #1, Starry Eyes, On With the Show, Piece of Your Action. I know there were two, I guess not bonus tracks. There was Stick to Your Guns and Toast of the Town, which I guess Toast of the Town was a single. It wasn't. Was it on the album? The original version of Too Fast for Love was on, I guess, Leather Records, and then Elektra, once Shout the Devil took off, Elektra remixed it and reissued it, and they left off Toast of the Town, and I think Stick to Your Guns was the B-side of the Toast of the Town lyrics, and I always heard, when you read magazines about Motley Crue, when they were talking about their beginnings, they would say it all started with, for Motley Crue, with the Stick to Your Guns, Toast of the Town, Stick to Your Guns single, and for years, we never heard Toast of the Town. Pretty Boy Floyd covered it on their album Leather Boys with Electro Toys in '89. That was the first time I ever heard that Motley Crue song, Toast of the Town. And I love it. It's a good song. I would even say I like Pretty Boy Floyd's version better than the original Motley Crue version. Is there? I'll go through my favorites. My favorite song on "Shout the Devil." Oh, that's a tough one to pick. Maybe 10 Seconds to Love or Knock 'Em Dead Kid. Maybe Bastard. Maybe Shout the Devil. I love them all. I don't like them all. I love them all. Each one of them I could make a case for being my favorite. Favorite on Too Fast for Love. And I listened to it today. I listened to the original leather version today from 1981. I don't think I'd ever listened to it. I think it was on a box set from about 20 years ago. Music to Crash Your Car To. Awful title. And I remember it, but I just thought I don't need to listen to it. And I listened to it. It was surprisingly quite different. It was remixed and quite different. Especially Come On and Dance. Come On and Dance had an extra kind of a 30-second thing on the end tacked onto it. Livewire is great. Livewire is maybe the best Motley Crue. No, the best Motley Crue riff ever is Too Fast for Love. And Come On and Dance. That album, and I think after Shout the Devil, Motley Crue didn't really have a lot of riffs. They changed, which I'm going to get to in a minute. So getting to a favorite on Too Fast for Love. I'm Public Enemy #1. Oh yeah. Is that Piece of Your Action? I want you. I need you. I can't pick a favorite on Too Fast for Love. My least favorite, I don't really like Starry Eyes. And that was never too much into that one. Oh, and also another big difference on the original version of was it On With the Show that had an acoustic guitar intro? And it was electric on the remix version. But anyway, Too Fast for Love, a classic Motley Crue album. I would have no problem with anybody who says that's their favorite Motley Crue album. I would disagree, but I can see. If there's anything else you say is your favorite Motley Crue album, I would... I'll get to that. So now skipping ahead, Shout the Devil. Theater of Pain came out in 1985. One of the most disappointing albums I've ever heard in my life. Now remember, I was coming from Shout the Devil, how much I loved it. And so, I had high expectations. And this was when I used to read Circus Magazine and Hit Parader. And they, at some point in an interview, it was in Circus Magazine, it said, our next album we're recording now, it's going to be called Theater of Pain. I thought, oh my God, that's the fucking best album title ever. This album is going to be awesome. And then the first single, it came out, I guess, in the summer of '85. The first single, which came out before the album, and it was a video, was the cover of Smoking in the Boys' Room. Hated it, couldn't stand it. I still don't like it. For one, I think even I was 15. I think even then I thought it was strange to release a cover as a single. Maybe because Quiet Riot had done it with Come On Feel the Noise. And Mama We're All Crazy Now, which on Condition Critical, that came around the same time as Theater of Pain. And I hated their look. Now remember, the video came out at the same time. And they were so tough looking, mean looking during Shout the Devil era. And if anybody remembers, there were rumors also at the time that Motley Crue collectively had beat up Duran Duran at a bar or somewhere, at a party or somewhere in LA. And of course I believed that. I thought it was believable that individuals would fight each other, but also collectively as a group. And nobody could fuck with Motley Crue. They were tough. They had the best songs. And then I saw the video for Smoking in the Boys' Room. I thought, they're wearing scarves and pink and spandex instead of leather and studs and flames and black and everything. And I didn't like that, because despite what people say, you do listen with your eyes. I know that sounds pretty stupid, but it's true. That's why bands put so much effort into their image, because that does affect people's... It's not a make or break, at least not for me, but it does. So right away I had a bad impression of Theater of Pain, because I hated the look and I couldn't stand Smoking in the Boys' Room. That bluesy... I just didn't like it at all. And then when I heard the album, the first song was City Boy Blues. again, this is stupid, but it turned me off that they had the word blues in a song title. The fireflies and dog fights, running hot in the heat, and then it gets good. But then, my heart's in the country, my feet in the city with you. It's a little too bluesy for me. I thought that was a bad opening song. But despite that, I did learn every word of that. It seemed like I listened to that album once and I knew every word. That was when, I just absorbed music so much, and I knew. That and Invasion of Your Privacy were like the big ones, and I think I kind of liked it, or I'm not sure if I liked it or didn't like it at the time. I was kind of mixed. It was kind of like with Kiss with Crazy Nights, or not Animalized, maybe Asylum, Hot in the Shade. You were kind of expected to like Kiss because they were your band, and so I was kind of expected to like Motley Crue, and I think I was kind of conflicted. I was dumb. I was 15 years old. What do you want? And what was Louder Than Hell. Louder Than Hell was the third song. That was more like what I wanted. The big drum beat, I think a clear ripoff, and I thought at the time there was a ripoff of I Love It Loud, Louder Than Hell. Big drum beat, same kind of rhythm or tempo of the song. We like it loud, some like it loud, we like it loud, we like it louder. And some like violence, some like submission, some like aggression. Some use a bullet, some get a bullet in the head, some get a bullet in the head instead. I thought, yes, this is the Motley Crue that I love. This is about violence, and it's tough and everything. And I saw that tour, by the way. I saw that was October 18th, 1985 in Toronto at Maple Leaf Gardens, and Y&T opened. That was my first time seeing Motley Crue. And I saw Razor and Sacrifice the next night, October 19th, 1985. And then Keep Your Eye on the Money. No, what comes after Louder Than Hell? I'm not going to do track by track. Home Sweet Home. One of the biggest songs, I think at that time, the biggest song of the genre. They were kind of one of the first ones to have a really successful ballad, I think. I love Home Sweet Home. Loved it then, loved it now. I'm sure I got deathly sick of it. But it's one of those ones that I've mentioned before, since I never listen to radio now. And I've been away from it for so long, and I'm not constantly exposed to it. I love Home Sweet Home. One of the greatest guitar solos ever. I've mentioned before that I love guitar solos, but I don't have like a file on guitar solos, except kind of for Kiss. But Home Sweet Home got one of the greatest, and I don't care about talent. If you're a guitar player and you want to say that's easy to play, I don't care. It sounds great. Same with We're Not Gonna Take It. To me, that's all you need. If it sounds good, I don't care about talent. And Home Sweet Home, it had many. I mean, it was one guitar solo, but it had different different flavors to it. Awesome, love it. Couldn't, and even now, I still listen to Home Sweet Home by choice. I don't do that with Crazy Train or Rock You Like a Hurricane, Enter Sandman, Rockin' All Night, but I do listen to Home Sweet Home by choice. I love it. And then the second song, my favorite on Theater of Pain is probably Tonight, We Need a Lover. First song from the second side. A little bit heavier. Tonight. What else? Use It or Lose It. Save Our Souls is my least. No, City Boy Blues. Yeah, 3 songs that are not so good. Save Our Souls, City Boy Blues, and also Save Our Souls has some kind of blues slide guitar. That's probably why I don't like it. Save Our Souls, Smoking in the Boys Room, and City Boy Blues. Don't really like those songs. Hate Smoking in the Boys Room. And then Raise Your Hands to Rock. It was okay. I was kind of disappointed. I didn't like it that time. I think that was around the time when I got really sick of songs with rock in the title. Raise Your Hands to Rock. Rock! And it just bugged me. I like it, but I hated the song title. And it was a little bit surprising because it's had acoustic guitar. And then the last song was Fight for Your Rights, or as Vince Neil sang it, Fight for Your Right. Fight for Your Right. I like that song too. So Theater of Pain, I'm not sure about. I think I'm more towards liking it than not. But at the time, I just hated that image. That was not how Motley Crue was supposed to look in my eyes. Next was Girls, 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 and I'll try to keep this short. Almost the same as Theater of Pain. I loved Wild Side. I'll put Wild Side in the same category as Home Sweet Home. I got sick of it at some point, but there's no denying Wild Side is a kick-ass song. I love it. And when I first heard it, it was the first song I heard, I think even before Girls, 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 because the video for Girls, Girls, Girls was banned on Much Music in Canada. And so Wild Side, it kind of slams in, and it had kind of a riff, a good Motley Crue riff. And I thought, oh yes, this is how I want. And when I heard that song, I thought, oh, they're going back to a little bit of Shout at the Devil flavor. And it wasn't really. And they looked a little bit, definitely not as glam as Theater of Pain. They were back to a little bit of their earlier look, but not quite. And I love You're All I Need, another ballad, fantastic guy. And actually, I think Vince Neil sounds great. I think back then he always sounded good, but especially on You're All I Need, great. Dancing on Glass, and I saw them on that tour too. October 25th, 1987, also at Maple Leaf Gardens with Whitesnake opening. And what else? Dancing on Glass, Bad Boy Boogie, I didn't really like that one too much. Again, it had that bluesy kind of, that boogie feel, didn't really like that, especially from Motley Crue. All in the Name of Rock and Roll was a great, they opened with that one when I saw them on that tour. And what else? No, again, I think that was Good Feller, similar to God Bless the Children of the Beast on Shout the Devil. So Girls, 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 yeah, kind of, my neighbor's out here taking care of my dogs. Kind of same category. If they had come out in the reverse order, if Girls, Girls, Girls could come out first, I probably would like that more than Theater of Pain, but Theater of Pain came out first. Next was 1989, Dr. Feelgood, their biggest album by far, and kind of amazing because it used to be the bands, they would go up and they would reach a certain point and then they'd go down and they would continue to go down. But Motley Crue went way, way, way back up, higher and further and bigger than they ever were with Shout the Devil and Theater of Pain. I loved Dr. Feelgood, the title track. When I first heard that song, I think I saw the video at the same time as I heard the song. To me, that was as good as anything they had done at that point. I loved it. That the drums and the bass intro, the video was great. They looked good again. They looked back a little bit, more black leather than they had been the last couple of years, especially more than Theater of Pain. And also at that time, that was 89. That was, I guess, hair metal, and I'll call it that. Whether you like it or not, and I don't think it should be derogatory. Sometimes it is. I don't mean it that way because I love this kind of music. Skid Row had put out their album earlier that year. Aerosmith Pump was out earlier that year. LA Guns, Cocked and Loaded came out around the same time as Dr. Feelgood. Faster Pussycat, Wake Me When It's Over came out around the same time. Tesla, the great radio controversy. And so Motley Crue were, I think, kind of like, I talked about this when I talked about Pump, Aerosmith a month or whenever this was. And I think Motley Crue is kind of being influenced by these younger bands, not much younger, but guys who came after them. And I thought it was great that Skid Row sang on, I think Rattlesnake Shake and She Goes Down. They sang backup on a couple of songs. Now I hate Without You, never liked that song. I thought it sucked. They had a video for it. It was a single. I guess it was pretty successful. Never liked it. The opposite of Don't Go Away Mad, Don't Go Away Mad, Just Go Away. For me, one of the best Motley Crue songs, that one is, outside of anything on Shout the Devil. And I would put that one in the category of Sweet Child of Mine. No, it doesn't sound like Sweet Child of Mine, but it's kind of it's not a ballad, but it's a nice, light, kind of not a fun song, but just a nice song. Very, very good one. That was another, I don't think I ever got sick of that. Cool video too. I like that video too. Yeah, but I listened to this album not too long ago, maybe within the last year or two. I didn't like it as much. It was not as good as I remember. It's not bad. I think overall it's still better than Girls, Girls. I would take it over Girls, Girls, Girls for sure. Theater of Pain, I'm not sure about. But it was good. Dr. Feelgood, a good, somewhat of a return anyway, and it was massive. And then everything fell apart. Vince Neil either left or got fired, depending on who's lying. And John Corabi came in. Oh, and in the meantime, they did the Decade of Decadence Greatest Hits album, and they had Primal Scream on there. Didn't like that song, never did, still don't. So they did the album with John Corabi in 1994. Excuse me, now I think, to me that's kind of like The Elder with Kiss or Unmasked, that I'm gassy, excuse me. It's very divisive. A lot of people love it. Now, it was a complete flop. Financially, it went nowhere. People want Vince Neil and Motley Crue. They want Vince, Tommy, Mick, and Nikki. And especially Vince. I think with any band, the singer is the main focus of attention, the one that people associate the band with. And so with Vince gone, they were probably doomed. No matter what the album was going to be, if Vince Neil was not on it, I don't think it was going to do well. And it was pretty different, I guess. I mean, it was far from typical hair metal. It wasn't like a party, sex, drugs, drinking album or lyrically like their other albums. Now this one, a lot of people love it. I don't. It's a great sounding album. The drums, the guitars, everything. Probably for me their best sounding album other than Shout the Devil, which is perfect. And Corabi's voice is excellent, but I just never really get into the songs, and I'm not sure. And it's not Corabi or Vince Neil. I think even if Vince had sang on that album, I think I still wouldn't have liked it. The songs just never got my attention. Hooligan's Holiday was the first single. Loved it, and I still like it. But other than that, what is there? Uncle Jack, Power to the Music, Smoke the Sky, which to me it sounds like the riff from Cotton and Mosh by Anthrax. Misunderstood. It's not a bad album, and I did like it. One thing that I will say about the 1994 John Corabi album, I'll give them credit, and I gave them credit at the time, that they were going away from what, grunge, again, for lack of a better term, like hair metal. Grunge was big then, and it wasn't a grunge album, but they were saying, okay, I guess they were saying we can't keep doing She Goes Down and Rattlesnake Shake and things like that. So they did the Corabi album. So it was a little bit more serious. So I give them credit that they did try to change a little bit. But yeah, that album was a big flop. I think a lot of people retrospectively love it. Not a lot of people love it. There are some people who love it. Generally speaking, that album was not very well received. It's kind of changed over the years, maybe like Saint Anger. I don't know. I think a lot of people still can't stand Saint Anger for different reasons. I feel like there was something else I was going to say about the Corabi album. I don't know. And then of course, 6 years later, Nikki Sixx said that was not a good album when he loved it at the time. After that, now Generation Swine was next. Now this is one that I mentioned ages ago, probably about 3.5 hours at this point, at the beginning of the video, that most people hate. I kind of flip with Generation Swine and the Corabi album. I don't love, maybe do I love Generation Swine? I love some songs in it for sure. I definitely like it better than the Corabi album. And again, I think the thing that I liked about it was that they tried something different. They were, again, now this was 97. Again, it wasn't grunge, but they were trying something different. I loved it. The opening track, Find Myself. Love that song. It's Nikki Sixx, kind of a spoken word in the beginning. I got to find myself some love. I got to find myself some drugs. I got to find some liquid sunshine. And then Vince Neil, I'm a sick motherfucker. I'm a smacked out lover. Ain't no one tougher. It's a stupid, bratty, lyrically, a stupid, bratty, immature song, but I love it. Fantastic. Next was Afraid. I'm not going to do track by track, but just thinking of it. Afraid was the second song, which was the first single. I love that one too. Cool bass. You don't hear that often about Motley Crue. Flush was next, also kind of a trippy song. So Long to You, So Long to Me. So say goodbye. Someone tell me why. So Kiss It All Goodbye. I like Flush a lot. Now I think Generation Swine was next. That maybe had the greatest for me, or my favorite Motley Crue riff since maybe Wild Side. Maybe the Karabi album had some good riffs anyway. But I love the riff. I think Generation Swine was the closest to what you would consider classic Motley Crue from the 80s. We're the Generation Swine. And now John Corabi recorded that album, or at least partially, and he's on it a little bit. He's on Let Us Pray. Heavy riff on that one. And he sings let us pray, let us hunt. And he screams, which reminds me of Pepper Keenan of COC, Corrosion of Conformity. Sometimes people don't have time to say Corrosion of Conformity, so you can just say COC on Vote with a Bullet on Blind. The screams that Pepper does at the beginning. John Corabi's screams in Let Us Pray remind me of that. Is there anybody there? Kind of a fast, a little bit about, I would hate to say this about Nikki Sixx, that he wrote kind of a punky song, but what's it called? Is anybody out there, or anybody out there? It's only a 2-minute song, but fast, kind of aggressive, punchy, right to the point. Glitter Sucks. That's a bad song. Glitter. Tommy Lee sang, what was the song that Tommy Lee sang? Beauty? She's my beauty, my black beauty. She's HIV VIP. That song was okay. What else? Oh, maybe my favorite. Oh, no, I think my favorite on this, my dogs are barking out here. No, I won't yell at them. Oh yeah, A Rat Like Me. A Rat Like Me Won't Save the World. I think that's my favorite. And, I'll get to Brendan. I will get to Brendan. And then they'd had a new version of Shout the Devil 97, which was clearly Vince's original vocal from 1983 on Shout the Devil. I can't remember if they tried to play it off as if it was a new vocal or not. It clearly wasn't. The music was new. And I liked it. Some people were really angry about it. They say, why? The original was so great. And I agree, it was great, but nothing wrong with having a different version of it. Just because it's not as good doesn't mean it's bad. I liked it. And then Brandon was the last song. It's possible that that's the worst song in the history of songs, lyrically especially. I think it's not as bad with the music. If you just read the lyrics, this is the worst shit you've ever heard. Brandon, she's your mother. She gave birth to you. You came from her. You were in her vagina. You came flying out of there with placenta or something, whatever the lyrics were. Just the worst crap you'll ever hear. Has no business. Now I know it's a very personal song. Obviously Tommy Lee wrote it about his son Brandon, who later, maybe this is another reason to not like Tommy Lee, he's just trash. He got beat up by his own son Brandon, who he wrote a song about years later. I think this was 5 years ago or something. He got beat, maybe more than that, got beat up by his son. Very trashy family, I think. Not judging, but hey, they're trashy. When you're getting in a fight with your son and calling the police on your son, you're trash, I think. And yeah, that song deserves every bit of scorn that it gets. And it's a lot. It's really, really a lot. And okay, he was writing a song for his son, but maybe not everything needs to be out in public view. And it made me think, I can think of two other songs that were written for people's sons. Eddie Van Halen wrote a song for Wolfgang, I think, on one of the later shitty Van Halen albums. And Goldfinger, one of my favorites from the mid-90s and beyond maybe, John Feldman, the singer, wrote a song called Julian for his song. Oh, and Jason Bieler, I just thought another one, maybe my favorite all-around musician ever, Jason Bieler, who's got a new album coming out this Friday called Postcards from the Asylum. He wrote a song in 1998 called about his daughter called My Love, parentheses, Caitlin's song. His daughter's name is Caitlin, so My Love, Caitlin's song. Am I missing something? Leave a comment down below. I love to encourage comments. I don't know if anybody's watching at this point, but so Brandon, Julian, Caitlin, and whatever the Van Halen song was called. Tell me more. Give me more. As Kiss says, give me more. Songs that were written about people's children. So that was Generation Swine. Now, Next was New Tattoo. My instinct is in 2002. Tommy Lee was gone and New Tattoo came out. It's my instinct to say New Tattoo as an album is New Tattoo is to albums what Brandon is to songs. Sucks, worst ever. Up there or down there with Peter Criss's 1978 Kiss album. If you know what I think of Peter Criss's album, you'll know how strongly I feel about New Tattoo. I listened to it today. I give it a break. It's not as bad as I thought. I can only think of it as what I thought at the time. I would rather listen to New Tattoo than like Mr. or Aha or Till Tuesday or A Flock of Seagulls. Of course, I would rather listen to that. I would rather listen to Peter Criss, his album, than those. But I'm talking about when you have expectations and you like a band and then it's just crushingly disappointing. That was how New Tattoo was. Because as I said, I liked how they, they kind of reinvented themselves with the Karabi album, and then again even more, I think, with Generation Swine. And then they just went back to being Motley Crue, 80s Motley Crue in 2000, which I'm sure a lot of people love. This album went nowhere. I don't know why. I think it was just the wrong time. And I was going to say about the Karabi album, some people, I knew there was something else I was going to say. Some people say they shouldn't have called it Motley Crue. Why? Just because Vince Neil wasn't it? Are bands supposed to change their band name every time they get a new band member or alter their sound a little bit? It was fine being called Motley Crue. So I liked it that they were moving forward, and then they just went back. To me, it seemed very lazy. It was very sex, drugs, and rock and roll album. And I think if this album had come out after Dr. Feelgood, after Theater of Pain, after Girl, if it had come out at any time earlier, it would have been much, much bigger. I think also the fact that Tommy Lee was gone. You know, a lot of people get turned off when somebody leaves, especially an original member. And the timing was off. 2000 people didn't want to hear about Motley Crue. But yeah, these song titles were Porno Star, Fake. Amazing that Nikki Sixx wrote a song called Fake, and it was all about how they never sold, they never won a Grammy, and they never played the game. Amazing that Nikki Sixx is singing this stuff. First Band on the Moon, Punched in the Teeth by Love, Hollywood Ending. That song is not bad. New Tattoo, the title track, it's not bad when I listened to it today. So in retrospect, New Tattoo is not as bad as I thought. Just horrible, horrible timing for it. Maybe similar with Stanger, which I've talked about a little bit before. So yeah, New Tattoo, I'm not, again, that's another one that I'm not sure what to think of. And then the final, I'm sure that there will never be another one. Motley Crue album was The Saints of Los Angeles in 2007, I think it was. Forget it. Bye-bye, Motley Crue. That album fucking sucked. Think Peter Criss, 1978. Don Dokken, Up From the Ashes. I don't know what other albums you could liken it to. Mick Mars, as I talked about earlier, was absent from that album. I think Motley Crue was just not even a band at that point. They were just kind of, I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it. I listened to that album when it came out, and I probably at the time thought I hated it even more than I hated New Tattoo at the time when I listened to that 7 years earlier. Haven't listened, now to be fair, I haven't listened to Saints of Los Angeles again since probably whenever it came out, 2007. I don't think I've listened to it, 2008, I don't know. I gave New Tattoo another chance. I don't know if I'm willing to give Saints of Los Angeles another song. The only song I can remember is the title track, and I think that sucked. And that says a lot if that's the only one I remember about how much, what I think of the other ones, which is nothing. So I to be honest, I'm not even sure that the Saints of Los Angeles deserves another listen from me in 2023. I don't think so. So that's it from Motley Crue. Now, one last thing to wrap it up. Motley Crue played here in Mexico City in the middle of February with Def Leppard. They played a big stadium here, 50 or 60,000 capacity stadium. Now, when it was, and I swore years ago I would never see Motley Crue again because of all the reasons I just mentioned. Mostly because of the backing tracks and just that they're really lazy. and just that they suck in general. But I did think, so they announced this, I don't think they called it the stadium tour, but it was Motley and Def Leppard. And they announced it, and because they said they were going to play in Mexico. And I said, you know what, maybe I should go. Maybe I should give Motley Crue, not that I was going to give them another chance, that I was going to, forgive them for Saints of Los Angeles or anything. But I thought, they're at the point now, and I'm at the point where everybody is old now, and kind of like a nostalgia thing. That's the best way to say it. I thought, you know what, I think if they come to Mexico, I will go see it as a nostalgia thing. And also, I like going to big concerts. They're fun. I always have a good time. I've never seen Def Leppard, and I was kind of a big Def Leppard fan, at least for a short period. So I thought, okay, if they're playing in Mexico, I'm going to go. And they said, we're going to announce tour dates, and Mexico's on. I thought, oh, cool, okay, I'm going to go see it. And then they announced it, and it was in the middle of February when I was at the time it was announced in October, whenever it was, for February. I was going to be in Vietnam at that time. And I thought, it's not the worst thing, that I miss it. Nothing I can do. So it's not like if I had missed Metallica or Pearl Jam or something. I thought, I would have gone, but whatever. Knowing now what I know, I'm actually happy that I didn't go to that concert. I would have been unhappy, I think, with myself. I would have felt dirty knowing that I'd gone to and paid to see a band that can't even play live. And I kind of knew that at the time, but now it's been blown open by Mick Mars and Carmine APPICE. And I'm actually happy that I didn't go see Motley Crue. And I really wish, I have no influence over you or anybody, but in a perfect world, I would love it if people just stopped supporting this kind of crap. If a band sucks, if they can't play live, if they're especially going to this extent that Motley Crue is going to, if Mick Mars is to believe, and it's not that I want to believe him. I mean, I do believe him, not because I want to hate Motley Crue, but just because it makes sense. It's just in line with what everybody says and what you've seen in video and, whispers and rumblings. They don't deserve anybody's money. And I know tickets for that stadium tour in the US were ridiculously expensive. I think the cheapest ones here were maybe even less, $40 maybe. So I would have paid that much anyway. US I'm talking about. But it would be nice to think that, and I know it won't. People don't waste your money on shit like Motley Crue live anyway. I'll always love Shout the Devil and Too Fast for Love and Theater of Pain and all these other ones I talked about. But yeah, that's enough. Drop it. Don't spend hundreds of dollars to go see them. I don't know. I wish, and you could say that about a lot of bands too. You get to a point where, just like athletes, you can't do it anymore. There's nothing wrong with that. Retire or, continue as a band or maybe play occasional shows. But for the amount of money that Motley Crue, again, not that they're charging, but that they're earning from this show, I think they should put a lot more effort into their show. It's amazing to think that they just go up there and they just play along to tracks. So anyway, that's it for Motley Crue, and it's kind of disappointing for me to think that a band that I held in such high regard is now one that I just musically and personally just a joke band. Everything about them sucks. I do still have 3 Motley Crue shirts, and I'm not going to stop wearing Motley Crue shirts, and I'm not going to stop listening to them. But I think my days of supporting Motley Crue, I think sadly, or maybe not sadly, have come to an end. So that is all. That was a long one. I don't know. I think that was over an hour. I can't see the timer on the video, but I think it was a long one. Good thing I have my windows closed to block out noise, and I don't have air conditioning, and you can't see, but I think I'm sweating a little bit. So that's all. Back to my normally scheduled, whenever I feel like it, single albums. But I just wanted to do this going through Motley Crue's whole discography. There you go.